I never thought I'd live to see the day my little girl would be lying in a hospital bed, fighting for her life, alone. The last time I spoke to Emily, she sounded exhausted, but she kept saying, "Dad, I'm fine. Please don't worry." Those words replayed in my head when I got a strange call from her neighbor in Los Angeles, telling me Emily had been rushed to intensive care after collapsing in her apartment. Without a second thought, I booked the next flight from Texas to LA. No warning, no packing, no sleep, just fear running through my veins. When I arrived at the hospital, the sterile smell of disinfectant hit me like a wall. I rushed to the ICU, and there she was, my only daughter, pale, weak, with tubes running across her body. My heart broke. I asked the nurse, "Where's her husband, Ryan?" The nurse looked confused. "He hasn't been here, sir. Not once." I clenched my fists. Emily had married Ryan 2 years ago, a charming, ambitious man who always talked about success and luxury. I funded his startup, helped them buy their first home. I thought he was a good man until that moment. When I called his phone, I heard loud music, laughter, and the sound of waves. He answered, shouting over the noise, "Hey, Pops, can I call you later? We're celebrating a big deal on the yacht." I froze. Celebrating? While his wife was dying alone? I didn't say a word. I hung up, walked outside, and called my lawyer. "Transfer everything," I said coldly. "The company shares, the house, all of it. Pull my investments out of Ryan's accounts. I want him penniless within the hour." By the time Ryan docked back to shore, he had lost everything. His cards declined, his company access revoked, and his so-called friends vanished when they realized his money was gone. That's when he called me, screaming, begging, losing his mind. I let him shout. Then I said quietly, "Now you know what it feels like to lose everything you love." But I wasn't done yet.
Ryan's screams still echoed in my ears long after I hung up. I walked back into the ICU, my chest tight, my heart heavy. Emily's face was pale, her breathing shallow, the machines beeping steadily beside her. I took her hand. It felt cold. My strong, brave girl who once dreamed of becoming a doctor now lay helpless because the man who promised to protect her had left her alone. The nurse came by quietly, adjusting the IV drip. "She's stable for now," she whispered, "but it's critical." I nodded, unable to speak. My eyes burned, not from lack of sleep, but from a mix of anger and heartbreak. I looked at my daughter and remembered the day she told me she was marrying Ryan. She was glowing, full of hope. "Dad, he's the one," she said. "He believes in me." I believed her because she was my world, and I wanted her happiness more than anything. I gave them my blessing, helped them set up a house in Beverly Hills, even invested $500,000 in Ryan's startup. He promised to take care of her, he promised to love her forever. But promises are cheap from men like him. That night, as I sat beside her bed, I got another call, this time from Ryan's so-called business partner, Mark. "Mr. Thompson, I thought you should know," he said cautiously. "Ryan's been using your money to fund parties, luxury trips, and other women." I felt something inside me break. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. My daughter was dying, and the man she trusted was living like a king on her father's money. I stood up, trembling with rage. "He's finished," I muttered. I spent the next few hours on the phone with my lawyers, freezing every account, pulling back every dollar, selling off every share I had tied to his name. By morning, Ryan's entire empire crumbled. His yacht was seized, his credit cards canceled, and his name blacklisted by investors. I heard he showed up at his office only to find security escorting him out. I could almost imagine the look on his face, confused, panicked, desperate. He tried calling Emily's phone, but I had it in my pocket. Then he called mine again. "You can't do this to me," he screamed. "You ruined my life." "You did that yourself," I replied calmly. You had a wife who loved you more than anything, and you traded her for a bottle of champagne." There was silence, then a shaky breath. "I didn't know she was that sick," he mumbled. I clenched my jaw. "You didn't care enough to find out!" I ended the call and went back to Emily. I sat by her side all morning, whispering stories from her childhood, how she used to dance barefoot in the yard, how she painted the dog pink once and blamed the rain. Around noon, she opened her eyes slightly. "Dad?" Her voice was faint, but it was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. "I'm here, sweetheart," I said, gripping her hand. "I'm not going anywhere." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Where's Ryan?" My throat tightened. I wanted to tell her everything, how that man didn't deserve a single tear from her, but I couldn't break her heart while she was fighting to stay alive. So I lied. "He's away, honey, but he knows you're strong. He's praying for you." She smiled weakly and closed her eyes again. That smile nearly killed me. Later that evening, I stepped outside to get some air. The sky over Los Angeles was orange with the setting sun. I thought about all the times I'd warned Emily that love without respect never lasts. I thought about how I'd failed to protect her. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from Ryan. "Please, I need to see her. I'll do anything." I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the hospital chapel and sat alone. "God," I whispered, "if you let her live, I'll give up everything. I'll start over. Just don't take her from me." I stayed there for hours, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside, the faint cries of people praying for their loved ones. Around midnight, the doctor came out of the ICU. His face was calm. "She's responding," he said softly. "She made it through the worst." I felt my knees weaken. Relief flooded me like a storm. I thanked him over and over, tears streaming down my face. That night, I stood by Emily's bed and promised her silently I would never let anyone hurt her again. And as for Ryan, he was about to learn what true consequences looked like. Because I wasn't just taking his money anymore. I was going to take away the reputation he built on lies. The next morning, the world seemed a little less heavy. Sunlight filtered through the blinds of the ICU, falling gently on Emily's face. She looked peaceful for the first time in days. The machines still beeped, but the rhythm felt steadier, stronger. I sat there quietly, holding her hand, thinking how close I'd come to losing her forever. Around noon, a nurse came in with a bouquet of expensive roses. "These just arrived for Miss Thompson," she said. I frowned. The card had no name, just one line: "I'm sorry." I didn't need to guess who sent it. My first instinct was to throw them in the trash, but I stopped myself. Emily might need to believe there's still good left in the world, even if it comes from a man like Ryan. That afternoon, I got a call from my lawyer. "Sir, everything's finalized," he said. "Ryan's accounts are frozen, his properties are under review, the investors pulled out." I nodded, staring at the city skyline through the hospital window. "Good. Let's make sure he can't rebuild it." My lawyer hesitated. "You sure you want to go this far?" "Yes," I said coldly. "He celebrated while my daughter was dying. That's how far I'll go." Meanwhile, Ryan's world was collapsing. His luxury apartment had been seized, his car repossessed, and his so-called friends turned their backs on him. He went from yachts to cheap motels in a single night. And yet part of me wasn't satisfied. Money wasn't enough. I wanted him to understand pain, loss, and guilt. I wanted him to feel what Emily felt when she lay there alone. A few days later, Emily was moved out of intensive care. She was weak, but recovering. "Dad," she whispered one afternoon, "can you forgive Ryan? I know he made mistakes, but I still—" She didn't finish. I forced a small smile. "Sweetheart, don't think about that now. You just focus on getting better." But her words haunted me. Forgive him? After everything he'd done? No, not yet. Maybe not ever. A week later, I received an unexpected visitor in the hospital lobby. Ryan. He looked like a ghost. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes hollow, his beard unshaven. "Mr. Thompson," he said quietly, "I need to see her." I stared at him in disbelief. "You've got a lot of nerve showing up here." He nodded, looking down. "I know. I deserve every bit of what happened. But please, I just want to apologize." My fists clenched, but something in his voice, raw, broken, made me pause. "She doesn't need you right now," I said firmly. "She needs peace." He swallowed hard. "I was scared, okay? I didn't know how to deal with it. I thought if I ignored it, it wouldn't be real. But when I saw her picture in the news, He stopped, tears filling his eyes. "I didn't expect that." "You saw it?" "Yes," he said, trembling. "The article said she was critical. I tried calling, but my phone was dead. I know it sounds stupid, but I panicked. Then your lawyer called, and I realized what I'd lost. Not the money, not the house, her." His voice cracked. For the first time, I saw regret, real regret. Still, I wasn't ready to forgive him. "You'll leave her alone," I said quietly. "If she asks for you, I'll tell her you came. But until then, disappear." He nodded. "Okay, I'll go." As he turned to leave, he pulled something from his pocket, a small silver locket. "She dropped this on the yacht months ago," he said softly. "It has her mother's picture in it." I took it slowly. It was the same locket Emily had worn since she was 15. I didn't say a word. He walked away, shoulders hunched, disappearing into the crowd. When I went back upstairs, Emily was awake. I showed her the locket, and her eyes widened. "Where did you find this?" she asked. "Someone returned it," I said. She smiled faintly and held it close to her chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, thinking about Ryan. Maybe he truly had changed. Maybe losing everything had opened his eyes. But I wasn't sure if that was enough. Forgiveness isn't a gift, it's earned. Still, deep down, I knew Emily's heart was softer than mine. One day, she might forgive him. But me? I wasn't ready. Not yet. The next morning, a news alert popped up on my phone. Former tech CEO Ryan Adams declares bankruptcy after investor scandal. I read the headline and sighed. His empire was gone for good. For a moment, I felt peace. Not joy, not revenge, just quiet peace. But little did I know that peace wouldn't last. Because soon, something unexpected would happen that would change everything I thought I knew about Ryan and about what it really means to forgive.
3 weeks passed. Emily was finally discharged from the hospital, though still weak and recovering slowly. I brought her back to my home in Texas, away from the noise and the painful memories of Los Angeles. She smiled when we arrived, looking at the familiar countryside she grew up in. "It feels like home again," she whispered, holding my arm. I felt relief, but deep down, a quiet unease stayed with me. Something about Ryan's last visit, his broken voice, his tear-stained face, it kept replaying in my mind. That night, after Emily went to sleep, I sat in my study with a glass of whiskey, staring at the locket he'd returned. Inside was the same faded picture of her mother, my late wife, smiling gently. It was strange. After all the anger I had, I couldn't deny that he at least cared enough to return something so precious. But trust? That was gone forever, or so I thought. The next morning, Emily asked, "Dad, can you find out how Ryan is? Just if he's okay?" Her voice was soft, almost guilty. I sighed. "Emily, you don't owe him anything." "I know, but people make mistakes. Maybe he's trying to be better." Her compassion both amazed and worried me. I didn't want her heart to be broken again. Still, I promised I'd check. A few days later, curiosity got the best of me. I called Mark, Ryan's former business partner. "You heard from him?" I asked. There was a pause.
Yeah, actually. He's been volunteering at a free clinic downtown, working with kids. He doesn't even talk about business anymore. I was stunned. Ryan? Doing charity? Mark chuckled. Hard to believe, huh? But yeah, guy shows up every morning, works all day, never complains. It's like he's a different person. I didn't know what to think. That night, I told Emily, and her eyes lit up. See? Maybe losing everything woke him up. She wanted to write him a letter. I hesitated, but didn't stop her. A week later, a simple envelope arrived in the mail, addressed to Emily. I didn't open it, though my curiosity burned inside me. She read it quietly in her room and came out with tears in her eyes. He said he's sorry, Dad. Not for losing the money, for losing me. He said he's not asking for a second chance, just forgiveness. I didn't reply. What could I say? That I still hated him? That I wanted to forgive but didn't know how? Days turned into weeks. Emily's health improved. She started walking in the garden, painting again, even laughing like old times. But one evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, she said something that made my heart sink. Dad, I want to go back to L.A. I turned to her sharply. What? Why? Because I need to move on. I can't hide here forever. And I think I need to see Ryan. Not to get back together, I understand. Just to find closure. I looked into her eyes and saw determination. The same stubborn fire she had since she was a child. I knew I couldn't stop her. A week later, we flew back to Los Angeles. The city looked the same, but everything felt different now. Ryan lived in a small apartment near the clinic where he volunteered. Emily wanted to go alone, so I waited in the car, watching from a distance. She knocked, and when he opened the door, even from afar, I could see how much he'd changed. No luxury, no arrogance, just a man who had lost everything and was trying to rebuild his soul. They talked for nearly an hour. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Emily cry, then smile, then finally hug him before walking back toward me. When she got into the car, she was quiet. Did he say something? I asked. She nodded. He said he doesn't expect me to forgive him, but he'll spend the rest of his life making sure he never hurts anyone again. I drove in silence. For the first time in months, I saw peace in her face. That night she slept better than she had in weeks. I sat awake thinking about Ryan's words. Maybe he really had changed. Maybe life had punished him enough. But the next morning, everything changed again. I got a call from the clinic director. Ryan had been rushed to the hospital. A car accident. Drunk driver. My heart sunk. I didn't expect to feel what I felt then. Worry, sadness, even guilt. When I told Emily, she froze. Is he alive? She whispered. They said he's in surgery, I replied quietly. Without hesitation, she said, we have to go. And for the first time, I found myself driving to the hospital, not out of anger, but out of something else I couldn't name. Maybe it was mercy, maybe it was fate, or maybe it was the beginning of forgiveness.
We reached the hospital just before dawn. The sky was still dark, a faint gray light creeping over Los Angeles. The moment we walked through those hospital doors, everything felt painfully familiar. The smell of antiseptic, the hum of machines, the rush of nurses' footsteps. It was the same place where Emily had once fought for her life, and now it was Ryan lying somewhere behind those cold metal doors. Emily's hands trembled as she filled out the visitor form. He's in surgery, the nurse said softly. He was hit by a drunk driver late last night. Severe internal bleeding, multiple fractures. The doctors are doing their best. We sat in silence in the waiting room. I watched my daughter, her face pale, eyes red but steady. She hadn't said a word since we got there. I wanted to comfort her, but I didn't know what to say. Part of me was angry that we were here again, tangled in Ryan's life, but another part of me felt something I didn't expect. Fear. Not for me, but for her. After what felt like hours, a doctor finally came out. His expression was tired, but calm. He made it through surgery, he said. But he's weak. It'll take time to recover. Emily let out a shaky breath, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Can I see him?" she asked. "Just for a moment," the doctor nodded. She looked at me. I nodded silently, and she followed the nurse down the long hallway. I stayed behind, sitting on the cold plastic chair, staring at the floor. My chest felt heavy, not with anger anymore, but with confusion. Why did I feel relieved? Why did I care if he lived or died? A few minutes later, Emily returned. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "He woke up," she whispered. "He saw me. He tried to speak, but he just said one thing." I looked up. "What did he say?" "He said, 'Thank you for coming.'" She wiped her tears. "That's all." Then he smiled. I didn't know how to respond. That night we stayed at the hospital. Emily refused to leave his side. I watched her sitting there, holding his hand, and something in me shifted. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about forgetting or even agreeing. Maybe it was just letting go of the anger before it destroyed you. Over the next few days, Ryan slowly began to recover. When I finally went into his room, he looked fragile. Bandages, bruises, tubes everywhere, but his eyes were clear. "Mr. Thompson," he rasped, "you didn't have to come." I stood at the foot of his bed, arms crossed. "I didn't, but she did." He nodded slowly. "I know I don't deserve her kindness, or yours, but I'm grateful." His voice cracked. "You were right about everything. I was arrogant, selfish, blind. Losing her, losing everything, it broke me, but it also saved me." I stared at him for a long moment. There was no ego left in him, no pride, just a man stripped down to his soul. "Do you really love her?" I asked quietly. He didn't hesitate. "I always did. I just didn't know how to show it until it was too late." I looked at Emily, who stood behind me, tears in her eyes. I turned back to him and said, "Then prove it. Not with words, with the life you live from now on." He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I will." Days turned into weeks again. Ryan's health improved, and eventually the hospital released him. He had nowhere to go, so he started staying in a small shelter near the clinic. Emily visited him often, helping him walk, bringing him food, reading books aloud. Watching her, I realized something profound. My daughter had found peace, not by revenge, but by compassion. And strangely enough, so had I. One evening, Ryan called me aside outside the clinic. "Sir, I don't want you to think I'm trying to win her back. I know I don't deserve that, but I need you to know I'm dedicating the rest of my life to the foundation we're building together, a charity for families who can't afford medical care." I blinked in surprise. "A foundation?" "Yes," he said. "Emily's idea. She said no one should ever go through what she did, alone." He looked down. "If you'll allow me, I want to name it after her mother." My throat tightened. For a moment, I couldn't speak. That name hadn't been spoken in years. Finally, I nodded. "Do it right, Ryan. Don't waste this chance." He smiled faintly. "I won't." That night I went home and sat in my study, staring at the locket again. For the first time, I didn't feel pain. I felt peace. Maybe my late wife would have wanted this, to see her daughter forgive, to see me let go. But I knew life had one last test in store for all of us. Because as the foundation started to grow and Emily and Ryan began to heal, a storm was waiting quietly in the distance, one that would challenge everything we had built and everything we believed forgiveness truly meant.
Months passed, and the foundation grew faster than any of us expected. The story of a once wealthy CEO who lost everything and rebuilt his life by helping others caught the attention of local news stations. Donations started pouring in, volunteers joined, and soon the little clinic expanded into a full community center. Emily ran the medical wing, Ryan handled the operations, and I watched from a distance, proud but cautious. It wasn't that I didn't trust him entirely. I just couldn't forget the pain my daughter went through. But seeing them working side by side, calm, focused, driven, gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. One evening after a long day at the foundation, Emily came to me with glowing eyes. "Dad, guess what?" she said excitedly. "The city wants to partner with us to open 3 more branches." I smiled for the first time in a long while. "That's amazing, sweetheart. You've turned pain into purpose." She hugged me tightly. "We did, Dad, all of us." But that night, as I locked up the office, something strange happened. Ryan's phone buzzed on the desk. I wasn't going to snoop, but the screen lit up with a message preview that froze my heart. It was from a number saved as Lydia, legal. The message read, "We need to discuss the lawsuit before it goes public. Call me ASAP." My stomach tightened. Lawsuit. I knew better than to jump to conclusions, but old instincts kicked in. I took a deep breath, locked the building, and went home without saying a word. For the next few days, I watched Ryan closely. He seemed distracted, worried. Sometimes I'd catch him staring off into space or leaving the office to take long phone calls outside. Emily noticed it too. "He's been quiet lately," she said one morning. "Do you think something's wrong?" I shrugged, trying to hide my unease. Maybe he's just tired. But deep down I feared history was repeating itself. A week later, it happened. The headline flashed across every local news site. Former CEO Ryan Adams accused of financial misconduct during his previous company tenure. The article claimed that years ago, before Emily's illness, Ryan had falsified certain reports to protect his investors during a downturn. It was an old investigation, suddenly reopened by one of his ex-partners. The story spread fast, threatening to destroy everything the foundation had built. Reporters camped outside the clinic, donors began pulling out, and social media exploded with accusations. Emily was devastated. "Dad, this can't be true," she said, tears streaming down her face. "He's changed. He wouldn't lie again." I wanted to believe her, but the evidence looked bad. The documents showed his signature, his old emails, even transaction logs. Ryan didn't deny it. Instead, he sat in silence, head lowered. "It's true," he finally said. "I made those mistakes years ago. I thought they'd never resurface. But I swear, I've been clean ever since." Emily turned to him, shocked. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was ashamed," he said softly. "I didn't want my past to ruin what we were building." I stepped forward, furious. "You had the chance to be honest, Ryan. After everything, after what my daughter went through, you lied again." He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I didn't lie. I was trying to protect her, protect all of this." "By hiding the truth?" I snapped. "That's not protection, that's cowardice." The room fell silent. Emily sobbed quietly. Her faith shattered again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the empty halls of the foundation, staring at the photos on the walls. Kids smiling, families reunited, people helped because of what we built. Was it all a lie? No, it wasn't. The good was real. But the man behind it? Was he? The next morning, Ryan was gone. He had resigned from the foundation, leaving behind only a handwritten note on my desk. "I'll fix this, even if it costs me everything again. I'm not running this time. I'm taking responsibility." Emily found me holding the note. Her voice broke. "Dad, we have to find him." I looked at her, torn between anger and pity. I said, "Maybe this is his way of finding redemption." But she shook her head, her eyes fierce. "No, redemption isn't running away. It's facing the storm together." She grabbed her coat and headed for the door. And in that moment, watching my daughter walk away to find the man who had once broken her heart but now might be saving his own soul, I realized this story wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about second chances, the kind that cost everything but are worth everything. Yet, deep down, I knew this storm hadn't reached its peak, because the truth behind the lawsuit was darker than any of us could imagine, and it was about to expose secrets none of us were ready for. The next morning, I sat beside Emily's hospital bed, her heart monitor beeping faintly in the background. She looked so fragile, so peaceful, yet every second felt like a battle for her life. I held her hand and whispered, "Sweetheart, I'm here now. You're not alone anymore." Her fingers twitched slightly, and tears welled in my eyes. But even in that heartbreaking moment, my mind was still burning with anger. Anger at Ryan, the man who promised to love and protect her, but abandoned her when she needed him most. I checked the news on my phone, and there he was, smiling in some gossip article, paparazzi photos showing him partying with models on the same yacht he claimed was for a business deal. The caption read, "Young entrepreneur Ryan Adams celebrates record investment success." I almost threw my phone across the room. My daughter was dying, and this man was building his image on lies. I decided then, I wouldn't just take away his money. I would take away his reputation, every ounce of fake success he had built on my trust. I called a friend of mine, a journalist named Mark, who owed me a favor. "Mark, I need you to dig into Ryan Adams. Find everything, loans, transactions, affairs, whatever you can." Mark hesitated. "You sure about this, Tom? It'll get ugly." "He made it ugly the moment he left my daughter to die," I said coldly. Over the next few days, while Emily was in surgery again, Mark sent me file after file. Ryan had embezzled funds from the company, forged signatures, and even used Emily's medical insurance to pay for his personal yacht trips. I felt my blood boil. I sent everything to the authorities anonymously. And then I waited. 2 nights later, as I sat in the dim hospital corridor, a police car screeched to a stop outside. I watched through the glass doors as officers dragged Ryan out of the back seat, handcuffed, drunk, and shouting my name. "Tom, you set me up. You ruined me." I stood up slowly, walked toward him, and looked him dead in the eyes. "No, Ryan, you ruined yourself. The moment you chose celebration over compassion." He tried to lunge at me, but the officers pulled him back, stuffing him into the car. He screamed all the way down the hallway until the doors closed behind him. I turned back toward the ICU and saw the red light above Emily's room turn off. The doctor came out, removing his mask. His eyes were tired, but soft. "She's stable, Mr. Thomas. She made it through the worst." For the first time in weeks, I felt my chest loosen. I walked in and sat by her bed again. Her eyes fluttered open, and she whispered faintly, "Dad?" I grabbed her hand and smiled through tears. "It's okay, baby. You're safe now." But deep inside, I knew this wasn't over. There were still truths Emily didn't know, truths about what Ryan had done behind her back. And I didn't know if I had the heart to tell her. Not yet. For the next few days, the hospital room became our world. The rhythmic hum of machines, the soft light filtering through the blinds, and the faint sound of nurses walking by. It all felt strangely peaceful after everything that had happened. Emily was recovering, but she was still weak. She didn't ask about Ryan at first, maybe too tired to face the truth. But one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she looked at me with tired eyes and asked, "Dad, why hasn't Ryan come to see me?" I froze. The words caught in my throat. She deserved the truth, but I wasn't sure if her heart could handle it yet. "He's busy, dear," I lied, quietly. She smiled faintly, as if she wanted to believe it. "He always gets caught up with work," she whispered, turning away. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. The guilt was suffocating. How could I tell her that the man she loved was sitting in a jail cell for betraying her, that he had used her insurance money to fund his yacht parties, that he'd sold his soul for fame and greed? I couldn't. Not yet. That night, as she slept, I stepped outside for some air. The moonlight bathed the parking lot in silver, and the cold air bit against my skin. I took out my phone and saw a voicemail from Ryan. "Tom, you don't understand. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I loved her in my own way. I panicked when things went wrong. I thought the deal would save us both. Please, help me." I deleted the message without listening to the rest. "Sorry, son," I thought. "You made your choices." But deep down, his words haunted me for the rest of the night. The next morning, Emily was stronger. She could sit up, even smile a little. The nurse said she was recovering faster than expected. She reached for my hand and said softly, "Dad, thank you for being here. I don't remember much before the surgery, but I remember hearing your voice. It kept me alive." Tears burned in my eyes. I squeezed her hand and said, "That's what fathers are for, baby." But just as I thought things were finally calming down, a news alert flashed on the TV in the hospital lobby. Tech entrepreneur Ryan Adams, released on bail, claims he was framed by father-in-law. My stomach dropped. The headline spread like wildfire, every news outlet painting me as a vindictive old man who destroyed his daughter's husband for money. Some reporters even camped outside the hospital, shoving cameras in my face when I tried to leave. Emily saw one of the reports that afternoon. Her face went pale. "Dad, what is this? Why are they saying Ryan was arrested?" I had no more time to hide it. The truth was standing at the door, waiting to break her heart. And this time, I couldn't stop it. Emily stared at me, her eyes trembling with confusion and fear. "Dad, tell me the truth. What's happening?" Her voice cracked, and I knew there was no more running from it. I sat down beside her bed, took a deep breath, and said softly, "Sweetheart, you deserve to know everything." I told her how Ryan never came to the hospital, how he was partying on a yacht while she was fighting for her life, how I found out about his fraud, stealing from the company, using her insurance money for his luxury trips, and lying to everyone. I told her how I exposed him, how the police arrested him for what he did. Her face turned pale with disbelief, then red with anger. Her lips trembled. No, that can't be true. He loved me." "Emily," I whispered, grabbing her hand, "he loved your money, your name, not you." Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head in denial. She turned away from me, her voice breaking. "You shouldn't have done that, Dad. He needed help, not destruction." Her words pierced my heart. I didn't expect gratitude, but hearing her defend him after everything hurt more than I could describe. I stood up silently and walked out of the room, letting her process the truth on her own. The next few days were tense. She barely spoke to me, sometimes refusing to see me at all. But I stayed nearby, every single day. Then one evening, her nurse called me urgently. "Mr. Thomas, you should come now. Emily wants to see you." I hurried to her room. Her face was pale, but her eyes looked different, softer, calmer. She held her phone in her hand and said quietly, "Dad, I saw the recordings." "What recordings?" "The ones from the yacht," she whispered, tears forming again. "He posted a live video that night, drinking, laughing, celebrating while I was in surgery. I saw it all. I didn't believe you before, but now I know." Her voice cracked as she cried softly. I walked closer and held her gently, feeling her pain spill out. She whispered, "You were right. I just didn't want it to be true." I held her close and said, "Sometimes love blinds us, baby. But you deserve someone who would stand beside you in the darkest hours, not dance on a yacht while you're dying." She nodded weakly, resting her head against my shoulder. That night, she slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. I stayed by her side until dawn. The next morning, as the golden light filled the room, Emily said, "Dad, I want to start over. I want to leave all this behind. Him, the past, the pain. I just want peace." I smiled and said, "Then let's make that happen." A month later, after her recovery, we moved to a quiet town in Oregon, somewhere with green hills, soft rain, and no cameras. She started painting again, her laughter slowly returning. I watched her heal, day by day. Then, one morning, a letter arrived. It was from Ryan, from prison. "Emily, I don't expect forgiveness. I ruined everything. I thought success would make you love me more, but I only ended up losing the only person who ever truly cared. I hope someday you can forget the man I became." Emily read it silently, then folded it and said softly, "I forgive him, but I'll never forget." She looked at me and smiled faintly. "Because of you, I got a second chance at life." I hugged her tightly and whispered, "You were my reason for everything. I'd do it all again if it meant keeping you safe." As we stood there, watching the rain trickle down the window, I realized something. Revenge hadn't healed me. Love did. The love between a father and a daughter. That was all that ever mattered.